Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning into RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Frey Johnsson. Frey, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Frey Johnsson, who is like everything and has done everything and has really lived such a long life. And I've heard a lot about it because once every other month or so, I sit in your seat at the hair salon. And you cut my hair.
That's right.
Yeah, and where is it? It's one-on-one? Is that what
it's in Rhinebeck, yeah.
Is that what it's
One-on-one.
Called? One-on-one. And it's by the bank parking lot.
Correct,
And it's up some stairs. And we met years ago. You were at Iconic
yeah.
At one point.
Yeah, I started at Iconic, and then I went to the other salon, Jen Martin, and then now I'm on one-on-one.
And
doing the tour.
That seems like a fairly typical thing. It seems like hairstylists or hair cutters or barbers, whatever, hop around.
Move around, yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think just happened that way.
And when did you begin doing that? And what's the preferred thing? Is it hairstylist or hair cutter? Or
I like hair cutting is what I really like, but I do color and, perms and highlights. I do everything.
Right.
But hair cutting is my favorite.
And how long have you been doing that?
Ooh, a long time, because I did in Brazil for a while. Because I would travel and come back with like these funky haircuts, and then my friends would be like, "Oh, can you cut my hair like this?" And I was like, "Sure."
Oh, that's funny.
But I started really be attracted to hair because I was like always watching my mom get dressed and, doing her hair. And also we were friends with the girl from Ipanema, Eloisa Pinheiro. And then she has the, hair down her butt, and this beautiful, brunette hair. And she was my babysitter sometimes. So I would sit behind her and comb her hair like at 3-4 years old. So I was like,
that's freaking nuts.
I know.
Now I know the song, soft and tan and young, but I did not realize that it was written about a particular...
It's a real person, yeah.
Right. And what's her name?
Eloisa Pinheiro.
Is she still around?
She's still around, yeah. She's in her 80s now. And she had a TV show. I was on her show a couple of times.
So the song, I mean, it was a huge hit here. Was it a #1 hit in Brazil?
Yeah.
Everywhere. And it propelled her to some kind of a fame as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? And who is it? Antonio Carlos Jobim or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vinicius and Jobim.
Who?
Vinicius de Moraes.
Oh, okay.
And Tom Jobim.
And so how did you or your family come to be friends with the girl from Ipanema?
That was at the beginning. I think she wasn't even the girl from Ipanema yet.
Right.
But then, because she used to live close to the beach in Rio, and she would walk to the beach, and there was this bar with all these musicians and, philosophers and poets would hang out. And they would come, this beautiful brunette girl, young, going to the beach, and they wrote a song about her.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more of that story. So she lived near the beach and lived near you all, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
and she was your babysitter?
Once in a while, when we were in the club there, she would like to walk with the around.
The club? Which club?
It's like what do you call it? It's like one of those private clubs, like a pool.
Like a beach club sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was it was kind of a yacht club. Their yacht club.
Oh, isn't that interesting? And so you grew up there in Rio.
Yeah.
Like your whole youth.
Between Rio and São Paulo.
Okay. Yeah. And why Sao Paulo?
Because my father was transferred to São Paulo, so we moved to São Paulo, then back to Rio.
Okay. What a blast. So how was your youth down there?
It was good, I was I went to a Jesuit school.
Okay.
For a while, and then, but it was good. We have a good life, And as in Brazil, we have maids, and we have a full-time nanny. So we have a nice summer home.
That sounds ideal.
Yeah.
And what did your folks do that afforded you all this?
My father was an engineer, but he always worked with trading business, import, export.
Okay.
Yeah.
Import.
But my grandfather, though, when he came from Sweden, he opened a printing company.
Okay.
in Brazil. And then when he passed, the kids took over, but then they closed the company, and so my father went to the import export.
So, grandpa, your paternal grandpa, came from Sweden
Right.
to Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And how come?
I don't know. He was offered a job in in Rio or in Russia. So thank God he chose Rio.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it would be an
No,
especially
I don't. I
tough
can't see
choice.
myself as a Russian, really.
And so it sounds like a pretty cushy childhood. You got maids, you got the club, you got a
No, it
summer
was
home.
good. Yeah,
And siblings?
yeah. I have an older sister, younger sister, and a younger brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
All full siblings?
yeah,
And are you in touch with them?
yeah. Yeah, my sister, older sister, lives in California with her daughter. She's about to get married now in September.
Oh, nice.
And then my younger sister is in Boston because her daughter lives there. And her son is in California with my older sister. And then my brother is still in Brazil
Nice.
with a wife and 2 kids.
And are the parents still around?
No, they passed
I'm
a few
sorry.
years ago. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
My mom, like a little bit after COVID, not from COVID, and my dad before that, like a few years before.
Right. Now, one of the things I read about you, one of the biographical notes I found
Yeah.
online, is that your uncle, maybe,
Oh, yeah, my great uncle.
designed Brasilia?
Yep, my great uncle was the architect responsible for the Brasilia
That's amazing.
because he was born in Paris, and
Okay.
then they moved back to Brazil, and then he went to architecture school, and then he went back to France, and he studied under Courvoisier,
Okay.
and then he brought the modernism to Brazil, and then he was chosen to build the capital.
Which
and
is a
then
beautiful.
Oscar Niemeyer was one of his, protege.
Uh-huh.
And then, so.
And it's a gorgeous architecturally unified city that they built like in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere. And it's like built like an airplane. So have the left wing, the right wing, and the main strip, there's like the body of the plane.
Right.
Yeah.
And have you been there?
I was there once. Yeah.
Right. Right. And were you there with your great uncle?
No, my great uncle had passed already. I was there with, actually, I was there with my cousin from Sweden.
Oh.
He came to visit Brazil, and then we took a tour in the Amazon River,
Right.
and then we went to Brasilia, and then we had a tour around, and went to the Congress, went to all these other places.
I would love to go. It looks like such a beautiful place.
It's interesting. It's not my style.
Oh, and what is your style?
I don't know. I'm like modern, but that was like too much like 50s, kind of very like a lot of concrete. and,
Right.
Yeah, not really.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean the what do you call it? The other buildings like the cathedral, the Congress, all these are beautiful buildings, but the buildings, the residential buildings are not as interesting.
Right.
They're very square and
And
I don't know.
And so, who are the architects you like, or what are some of the buildings you like?
I like, from Brazil, I like this guy. I forgot
or
his
anywhere.
name now. He does a lot of wood and glass,
Uh huh.
and
Frank Lloyd Wright,
that I like him too. Yeah,
Marcel Breuer. I'm guessing wood and
Yeah.
glass people.
and but this guy in Brazil, I forgot his name, was very popular at the time when I lived there, but I can't remember his name right now. Yeah.
Huh. And so, do you? I mean, is it a special affinity of yours, architecture?
I'm sorry.
Is that something you're especially interested in?
I love architecture, yes, I do. And then, but I never went to school for architecture. But so I like interior designing and decorating, architecture too.
And is that what you went to school for?
No, I went to school actually for physical education.
Oh, physical education.
Yeah.
Really? One of the bios said you went to school
But-
for interior design,
Oh,
decorating,
that was
and
that was
jewelry design.
the jewelry. Yes, I went to school for jewelry, but it was like it was a private school, not like college. And then the interior design was also like a course, like
Oh, I
not
see.
like a real not
Right.
college for design.
And you on your Instagram page, there's so much beautiful jewelry
Yeah,
that you've done.
some of that are mine, and some of that are my friend's, Isha, that I sell her jewelry
Okay.
on Etsy. Yeah.
And so, do you still make jewelry?
So a little bit now, not that because I moved to this house and then I didn't have time to set up my studio yet.
Right. Oh, this is a gorgeous ring with a little fleur de lis on the
Yeah.
top. And can you tell me about this ring? For
This
those,
ring is actually inspired like a old Javanese design,
uh-huh.
and then the design in the center is also inspired by my mother's family crest kind of thing. So the 4 moons and the 8-point star and the fleur de lis.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
And where's your mother from that she has a family crest?
She was French and Dutch. Yeah. But she was already born in Brazil too.
Okay. And how did your folks meet?
They met. That's a good question. But I think they met because they used to. My grandfather built this house on the mountains, and then my mother used to go there too. So they met, through friends. Yeah,
That's nice.
yeah. And they were still we were still friends with their kids too. So it was like kind of a big family, like chosen family.
Right. And so when did you leave Brazil? And,
I
and
left
how-
Brazil. The last time I left Brazil was in '92.
when was the first time?
First time I was 19. Was it 84, 85?
Okay.
When I was in my 20s.
You were in your 20s.
Yeah.
And it was just time to see some of the world?
Yeah, I went. Yeah, because I had friends. They were a German friend,
Okay.
and then she was going. We met in Rio, and then she was going to visit her family in Germany, and she asked if I liked to go. I was like, I asked my parents, and they gave me the Europass.
Right.
So I went with her to Germany, and then I traveled to Europe a little bit, and then I lived in Germany for a year.
Oh.
Yeah,
And what were you doing in Germany?
I was working in a bakery because I wanted to learn how to bake. And then my friends had a friend that had a bakery, and they're like, "Oh, we have a friend that has a bakery. You can work there." I was like,
Well, that sounds kind of perfect. So
Yeah,
you
it was
wanted
great.
you wanted to know how to bake, and then you
Yeah.
got a job in the bakery.
yeah, because my friend, they were Germans, and then they moved from Mexico to Brazil. They were neighbors when I lived with my mom. And then one time they invited me over, and then her mother was making bread at home. And I was like, I had no idea you could bake at home. I was like, I thought you could only bake bread in a bakery.
Right.
And I was super excited. I was like, I want to learn how to bake bread. And then when we went to Europe, and then, she was like, oh, this guy is like, he's our friend, and he owns a bakery.
And so was it something of an apprenticeship?
I worked there. I learned as much as I could just from working.
Right.
But, yeah. But it was rough because it was like, I was young. And we would go out. We had to start at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then
And are you a
from
bake?
4 to 9. And we would go out. And sometimes I would go to work. And I was like still drunk on a bicycle
Well,
in the winter in Germany, pedaling.
well, I think that's
So-
the people's 20s.
But it was fun.
And do you still like to bake?
I do, but I don't bake a lot anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I do sometimes I go I find some good recipes online for more like pastries now because I'm
Yeah.
vegan, so I find all these vegan, kind of sweets and stuff.
That's tough. I mean, I think
Mm.
the hardest thing is to find a nice butter substitute, right?
No, they have good ones now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What do you like? Any brand names you can
I
recommend?
can't remember the name, but Mikos, something
Oh right,
like
Mikos.
that. Mikos, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a bad one.
Huh.
And yeah, I think that's the one.
And you find in baking it behaves about the same as butter?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Well, so you're not baking. What do you do in your free time now?
Well, I have a horse,
Oh,
so I
right.
spend a lot of time with her, doing
And
some training.
and have you always been into horses?
I used to have a horse in Brazil too, and
Okay.
I've been riding since I was 3 years old. Yeah,
What a treat. So what is this horse you have now?
She is considered like a American draft, so she's kind of Clydesdale, Frisian,
So
and
it's
Gypsy.
a
She's a
big
big
horse.
baby, yeah.
A big baby. How old is she?
She's only 2 years and 11 months.
Uh-huh.
She'll be 3 years next month.
And how long do horses usually live?
Oh, they can live up to 50 years old.
50.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
30, you'll be like 30, 35.
so she is kind of a baby.
Yeah,
And it's an American draft horse.
yeah.
And where did she come from?
She came from Binghamton.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I found her on the internet.
I was going to ask.
Because I would go online once in a while and check for horses around here. And then I never had, found anything that I was interested in. And I've been riding, excuse me, in some barns. And then when I saw her, I was like, oh my God, she's so cute. So I took a drive to Binghamton, and then I got there. I was like, oh my God, I think I'm just going to buy a horse.
So
It was kind of crazy.
So where did you see her online? Are there special
On the
sort of
internet. No,
horses?
I just Google like horses for sale around me.
Right.
And then she popped up. And she was like 10 months old.
Right.
She looked like a little, fuzzy thing. She has like all this long hair. And so I was like, it was a beautiful weekend. I was like, I'm going to take a drive. I called these people and I was like, oh, is that okay if I come to check her out? And they were like, sure.
I love that. And how many horses had you seen online, do you think, before you landed on
I
her?
don't know. Not that many. Because it was once in a while. I was like, it was a kind of like a fantasy. Like, oh, maybe I'll have a horse one day.
Right.
And then I would look online and it's like, oh, no. They were too old, or they were like, too far.
I'm imagining like a dating site, swipe left, no. So you saw this horse.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, this is the cutest beast. You drive to Binghamton. And what happens? I'm curious, how does one buy a horse?
So I got there. They were waiting outside already because I kept texting them like, I'm 5 minutes away.
Who were they? Was it like a stable or a couple? Or
a couple.
Okay.
And then I got there. They had the horse outside with the, halter already. So I got there and then I walk around with her. She was super sweet. And then I told them, like, I'm looking, but I still have other horses to look.
Look at
but
you.
I didn't.
Negotiating.
Yeah, exactly. And then I came back, and then I called the next day because I was like, I have to make a decision because if they sell her, I was like, what I'm going to do? So I called back, and I was like, listen, there's another horse I'm interested. Would you be able to negotiate the price? And they were like, sure.
And when you were there in Binghamton, did you meet this horse's mom and dad?
Just the dad.
Okay.
Apparently, she was an orphan. The mother had passed when she was like 6 months old.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I met the dad.
Was that a factor? You were like, oh, the dad seems nice.
Yeah, the dad looks nice. It was like a Frisian gypsy. But it was more for her. Like, I really like her. The whole thing about her.
Right. And so, all right, so you're back, you're on the phone, you're striking a hard bargain.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
and what even does a horse cost?
Well, they were asking like $7,000.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot.
Yeah. I mean, because she was young and it can be even more. And then, so I was like, oh, the other horse a little less, and would you take 5? And they were like, okay. And I was like, oh, that was easy.
Wow.
And then I organized like a trailer to go pick her up. And then they brought her back to New York. Well, first I bought her in Woodstock because I was living there.
Okay.
So it was like 5 minutes from my house. And then when I I was working here, so I found a better barn here, which was easier because I would go to the barn
Rhinebeck
first.
or Statsburg?
Statsburg.
Okay.
Calypso Farm. I would drive to the barn, then I go to Murbo, sauna, shower, change, and I go to work. So it's more like convenient. And then I moved to Kingston, so it was even more convenient because it's closer.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. So when you bought this horse, did it already have a name?
She had a name. She was named Sally.
Sally.
Yeah.
It's a cute name for what you described as a cute horse.
Yeah, but I don't know. She doesn't look like a Sally though.
Yeah. So tell us, Frey, what is the horse's name?
Freya.
Freya. Which is cute.
Yeah.
Frey and Freya.
Yeah.
I want to get a Christmas card this year from Frey.
You will.
Happy holidays from Frey and Freya. With
And the pack, because I have 5 dogs and 2 cats. So
wait, you've got 5
we'll
dogs?
add everybody to the card.
5 dogs,
Yep.
2 cats.
And a horse.
And so where are the dogs now? I mean,
They're home.
They're all at home. And they behave themselves when you're not there?
Yeah.
How long can you leave them at home?
Sometimes I have a friend that comes stop by and let them out, because now I have a
Right.
fenced backyard, so it's easier.
Right.
But usually they're okay, because I have wee-wee pads and,
Wee pads.
yeah.
So why 5 dogs? That seems a little excessive.
It just
to me.
happened. Don't ask me.
And I
It's
say this because
I wake up one day, I was like, what are these dogs doing in my bed?
Yeah. Yeah, my sister has 5 dogs. I give her a hard time all the time.
It
I'm like,
happens, yeah.
Well, yeah.
So they're mostly like 3 Yorkies, 1 Yorkie Maltese, and 1 Brussels Griffon, which was the last one that I got from a friend of mine. But
so they're not 5 large dogs.
no, they're little. They're all 8 pounds. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And so are you a soft touch to people in the neighborhood or relatives be like, oh, stray dog, call Frey?
Probably they
he'll
think that way.
I mean, I assume some of them come into your life that way.
Well, Bodie the last one was my friend Amanda's dog, but he barks too much, and she's more like a cat person.
Right.
So, every summer we go to her house to hang out, and my dogs were used to her dog. So one day she was like, hey, Fred, do you want to take Bodie? Because I can't handle him anymore. Because she lives in the city, she has a house up here, and she doesn't walk much. So I was like, sure. So Bodie joined the pack.
Nice. And does Bodie still bark as much?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. But not at nighttime, I'm guessing.
He doesn't, no. Just when he goes outside.
And why is it that some dogs bark and many other dogs don't?
I don't know. He barks at everything.
Right.
He's shallow, he's everything. At the plant, sometimes he sees a plant and barks, and I was like, why are you barking at the plant? There's nothing there.
And does he answer you?
No, but he just looks at me.
It was a trick question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you ever think of getting like a bark collar or?
No, I don't. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
I mean,
it doesn't
dogs
seem like
bark.
it bothers you.
You know, what can you do?
Some do.
They bark.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And 2 cats? Is that what you said?
2 cats, yeah. One
Right.
came with the house that I bought.
Oh, that's kind of sweet.
Yeah, because I think the previous owner passed.
Oh, okay.
And they left the cat behind. And she was living in the basement. There was like a hole in the foundation, so we were able to be going out, in and out. So one day I'm going there, with a flashlight after rain, and I put a flashlight in one corner. I was like, oh, there's a big eyes looking at me. I was like, oh, great, I have a cat.
Now you have a cat. And what is that cat's name?
Tina,
Tina.
because it was when Tina Turner passed. And then my friends, we were trying to figure out the name, and then my friend was like, oh, she call her Tina. I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
And what's the other cat's name?
Vin.
All right, now I got to ask all the dogs. There's Bodie.
Bodie, there's Lola,
Uh-huh.
Wilson, they came as a bonded pair.
Uh-huh, Lola and Wilson.
Yeah, and then I have Grace, because I was doing this meditation with Deepak Chopra about grace. So there comes Grace.
Okay.
And then I have Paris. Paris, because Paris Hilton was getting married. So I was like, oh, that's a good name.
I love
So
that.
Paris, and yeah, and Bodie.
And do you know Paris Hilton? Have
No,
you known Paris Hilton?
No.
You have a special
I kind of
affinity-
like her. Yeah, I think
what do
she's
you
a-
like about Paris Hilton?
I think she's a great, first of all, she has all those dogs that,
Oh, she does. I was
yeah,
not aware
she
of
has
that.
a lot of dogs. And, but I think she's a good person, she has a good heart. And
Yeah.
she's a DJ, she's a good entrepreneur. Like, she has like a lot of businesses, and
Uh-huh.
I think she's kind of smart, even though she's, she pretends to be like the dumb blonde, but I think she's pretty smart.
Right. That's just so funny to hear where all the names came from. Now, in amongst there, you got one of them named Grace,
Grace, yeah.
because you did a meditation thing with
With the
Deepak
pack, yeah.
Chopra. That sounds pretty cool. When did that happen?
Oh, that was, well, I have Grace for, I got Grace when she
I
was
like
one.
this.
That's 7 years ago.
You're figuring out
Yeah.
your life events based upon the ages of
It
the
was
past.
7 years ago,
Uh-huh.
about, yeah.
And how did that come to happen, that you're going on
With
a
Grace?
meditation retreat with
Oh, no,
Deepak
it
Chopra?
was like online. It was all like online, those,
Oh, okay.
yeah. He used to do like this 21 day free meditations.
Okay.
So it was me and another friend, we would do that. And yeah, so I was doing this Deepak Chopra meditation, and then Grace show up.
And what was that like? Like every morning for 21 days or?
Yeah, 21 days every morning.
Uh-huh.
And then you can listen to the meditation for like, I think 3 or 4 days, go back. Yeah.
So were they guided meditations? You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And he would, what kinds of things would the guide, I'm guessing Deepak?
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes it was Deepak and opera. Sometimes it was Deepak and this other singer, what's her name? Oh, I can't remember now. But he always has another person with him doing the meditation.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. And how long were the meditations?
It's 20 minutes.
It sounds pretty good. And do you still meditate?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And what kinds is at the end of the 21 days with Deepak and guest stars, how did you feel different in any way?
Oh yeah, all his meditations are really powerful. I think meditation in general is powerful, and yeah.
And what results did you see?
I don't know. You get to think about the thing, the themes that are going on the meditation. When it's about grace, you think all about grace and be grateful, and so it kind of brings you things that you wouldn't think every day, like on the daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I think then you incorporate to your life. Yeah.
Huh. And what, help me out, I'm not being coy. What does grace mean to you?
Grace for me means like, well, being grateful,
Okay.
one thing. And then grace is like being, gentle and being more like considerate. It's like grace, it's like not being too arrogant or being too aggressive, or be more graceful.
Right. I mean, but there's also a religious, I think, Christian.
Yeah, no, I don't
sort of
connect
the
to
grace
that.
of God upon you.
Yeah, no, I'm not connected with that side.
But were you once? I'm just thinking Brazil's probably a pretty big Catholic country.
Yeah, I went to Jesuit school.
Oh, right. And so
Yeah.
you were raised in this religion,
Oh yeah.
and you were probably, I'm guessing, because I was raised in that religion and I was a believer
Right.
for a long time, and then it's like, wait a minute, did that happen for you, or are you still a believer?
I don't know. We used to go to church every Sunday. At Jesuit school, you go to church like every Friday morning before class,
Right.
and then you have to go and tell all your sins to the priest, and they give you you have to pray so many this and so many that, and so and for me it was always the same thing. What did you do? Oh, I fought with my sister. I argued with my mom.
So this is when you're
Always
like
the same.
15 or 16,
Even last. Yeah, it
like
was
12,
10, 11,
10
12.
at the
yeah.
Jesuit school. So you had to go to confession like
Oh, yeah.
once a week?
Once a week.
So the tale can be told now. I mean, when you're going to confession, how open are you being? I'm guessing nobody tells the whole truth,
Right.
except
yeah.
for that one weird kid.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't confessed in a long time.
Right. But when you were younger, did you ever go in and just tell them everything, or were you always
It was
holding
always the
stuff
same
back?
thing. Like, oh, I argued with my sister, blah, blah, blah. It was always the same.
And did the priest ever say, "Come on, Frey, this is the
Yeah,
fucking same
no.
old shit. Give me something.
Yeah.
I know you're doing something."
No, he never said that.
No.
No.
Huh. And I've never done that. I mean, I was raised, Protestant. But do the priests seem very much sort of like just phoning it in for when they're doing confession with kids?
I don't know, because they're like they're in a box, so you don't see them.
You
So
can't see them at all.
You can't see them at all.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like my father and his brothers, because we're all like a boys' school, so my father and his brothers, they all went to the same school.
Right.
So they all knew my family really well, because my grandmother was very active with the school. My grandfather, like, helped build the Olympic pool there, and so they knew me really well. So it was kind of annoying because they were always like, if my hair was a little longer, they'll be like, "Hey, I'm gonna call your parents if you don't get your hair cut."
Right.
And I'm like, Jesus had long hair.
That's funny. So the hair thing has been something
Yeah.
in your whole
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
So at what point, I mean, it sounds a little bit smaller when you describe everybody knowing you and knowing your business. When did you first sort of find yourself in a realm where you had some anonymity? And was that something you sought out as a young man in your 20s or whatever, traveling here and there?
What do you mean? But-
Where people didn't all know you,
Oh,
where they didn't know your parents and your sisters.
traveling, yeah,
And did you feel the freedom of that?
definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how did that manifest in you? I mean, it seems like anonymity gives people an opportunity to remold themselves.
To do more, yeah. Well, I was, because growing up, I have a lot of freedom.
Right.
So it's not that I was always like under supervision. So I had my own, individuality too. I wasn't that, strict. But yeah, it was still the same thing. I was always very social, and I don't think it changed much.
Right.
But yeah.
And now I'm thinking about, you told me a story 1 or 2 haircuts ago
Yeah.
about being on a boat
Yeah.
and crossing the Atlantic,
Yeah,
I think,
I
and
did
then
that.
back to Brazil. And
Yeah.
then,
I did that.
what was that story? How did that happen?
That happened was because I went to a yacht club as a
Uh-huh.
teenager, so I learned how to sail. And I had friends that had boats and stuff. And then this time, and there's like a bar in Brazil that on Thursdays, a lot of people get together there. So even if you go by yourself, you end up in a huge table, with a lot of people. And then one day we were there, and then my friend came with her parents, and the father was like, "Oh, I'm taking the boat to Portugal, looking for some crew to help take the boat." And I was like, "Sign me up."
And how old were you?
That was when I was 32.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the boat was leaving in 2 weeks, so I had to like pack. And I had a horse at that time, had 2 dogs, had chickens, I had a cat. So it was like, my horse went to my cousin. She was like a vet for the jockey club, and she had a little, ranch. And then one dog went to a friend. The other dog went to the neighbors because he loved the neighbor's dog. He was always there. So I went there. I was like, "You guys want to keep him?" So they were like, "Of course." And I went to visit him afterwards, and he was super fine. And then
Yeah, he wasn't pissed.
no, the chickens went to I had this girl that used to come and help me in the house. She took the chickens and the cat. So in 2 weeks, it was like packed and out of there.
That sounds like a really spectacular adventure.
And my mom came after to the house because I was renting this house from a friend of mine. It was his grandmother's house. And then she came back and she just kind of cleaned the house and took my stuff because I didn't have time to move a lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
2 weeks, you got all your affairs in order.
And
And
I
then-
left I left Brazil with one big suitcase.
Right.
And that was it.
You disembarked from the yacht club in Rio. It
And
sounds
we
like.
went and from there we went to the Caribbean. So we were sailing the Caribbean for 4 months or so.
And whose boat was it?
That was my friend's boat.
Okay.
What happened was like he had other boats, but his son died when he was 18
Okay.
on spear fishing.
A spearfishing accident?
Spearfishing accident.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
When you spearfishing, you push yourself too far. The more you experience, and then you pass out.
You push free diving
To free diving, exactly,
depths.
yeah.
Oof.
So, and then he passed, and then this guy,
What a horrible way to go.
horrible, yeah. And he was, super, talented guy and smart. But then the father built this boat named Viva, and then he wanted to cross the Atlantic and go to Portugal. That was the background, descendants, or like Portuguese descendant.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll sail the Caribbean, and then his wife and my friend, they would fly to some islands and meet us there, hang out, sail around, and then they would all go back to Brazil. And then I would stay in the boat, taking care of the boat.
And what
And
kind of
then-
boat was it?
It was like a 40-footer sailing boat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty big boat.
It was a nice boat, yeah.
And how big a crew do you need to run a
This
40-foot?
boat, you don't need two men. 2 people can do it. Yeah, but we were 3. There was him, one guy that was like his sailor, the sail worked for him on the other boats, and me. Yeah,
And-
there's the 3 of us.
And so you get to the Caribbean,
Yeah.
and people are coming and going, and you're on the boat alone a bunch. And were you staying mostly in the boat, or where were you in the
Oh, no,
Caribbean?
We were usually in a marina,
Okay.
so yeah. But we spend most time in San Martin. Yeah, because you're waiting for the right time to cross the Atlantic, because you have to wait for the current and the winds and all that,
Huh.
and the hurricane season.
Right. And so when is usually the right time to cross the Atlantic?
The right time is before hurricane season, so it's like June,
Like now
before June, yeah.
is the end
May, June,
of, the end of the window.
right.
Right, because hurricane season's just sort of starting.
Started, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so that sounds kind of terrifying to me, crossing the Atlantic on a
It was a
sailboat.
little scary. So we had a big bad storm. And I was like, "Stop this boat! I want to get out."
Right. But you're in the,
The
middle
waves were
of
huge, yeah.
yeah.
But then on the other day, there was some days that there was no wind, no nothing, and the boat was just floating on the ocean. And then at night, it was so calm. It was like you're on a lake. It was like unbelievable. So no moon, pitch dark. You see the sky, and you see the reflection of the stars on the ocean, and you don't see the horizon. So it feels like you're like on space.
Like
It's
floating
a
in
really
space.
weird feeling, yeah.
Huh.
But it's like kind of trippy.
Wow. And did people take a lot of drugs on this crossing?
I don't think you need to. It's like
That's what I'm
really
thinking.
trippy. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like such a beautiful part of the experience.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah.
How long does it take to cross the Atlantic on this 40-foot?
It depends,
Sailboat.
because we were in the Caribbean sailing for a while,
Right.
and then we went to Portugal, to Azores, which are like those islands off of the coast of Portugal.
Right.
So we were there for a while, and then we hit the mainland on the Atlantic side.
But to go from
It could take 2 weeks if you go non-stop kind
right. If you don't have
or-
too many days where there was no wind at all.
of. Right. And we took more because, we stop in the Caribbean, every island, and hang out for a while. And in San Martin, I was in San Martin for I don't know, a month and a half,
Right.
waiting just to cross.
And
Yeah.
Was that a magical time of your life?
Oh, that was great. Oh my
Yeah.
God, it was like party time every day.
Uh-huh.
I met so many great people, and that was really cool.
Yeah, I'll bet. And so you get to Portugal and the Azores, I guess, and how long are you there? And then did you come back?
No, from the Azores. No, from when I was in the Caribbean, I met this guy that he was from Long Island, and he was staying on his friend's boat at the marina right next to our boat. And then we have an affair. He was being a skipper in south of France on a boat. And so he went back after his vacation, and then I was going to Europe. And then we kept in touch, because then at this point I was going back to Germany, because I had friends there. And I was done with Brazil. I just wanted to get out of there. And my friends in Germany were like, come over, we'll help you start over.
And
So that was my destination.
right.
And then,
Why were you done with Brazil at that point? This is the
a-
second time you left?
yeah, because it was too violent, poverty, on your face all the time. And at the time, I didn't think I could do anything to change. So it was like,
Right. And had it become a
Whatever.
lot more violent in sort of the
oh, yeah.
your
Got
first
worse,
32
yeah.
years of life?
I thought that, after I left, that in 10 years would get better, but it just got worse.
Right.
So I was like, oh,
That's a shame.
yeah.
And so you get over to Europe and your destination is Germany.
So yeah, I got to Portugal and then I hung out there for a while and then I went to Germany and my friends helped me to start over, with jobs and I was illegal. So I have all that stuff like get jobs that can pay cash and all that
Right.
stuff. And then I was in touch with this guy from Long Island that
Island.
was in France. So in the winter we flew back to the Caribbean because he had a friend that had like like a villa there in some parts.
Nice.
So we spent a couple of months in some parts, and then we flew back to Europe to his boat in south of France. So I stayed there for a while, helping him to get the boat ready for the summer. Then I went back to Germany, and then I went to Brazil, and then he called me from there, and he's like, "Hey, got a job in Asia. Do you want to go?"
This Long Island guy.
Yeah.
Your
And
paramour.
yeah, and then I was like, sure. So from Brazil, we went back to Germany, closed the apartment, and flew to Singapore. And he was already there on the boat, fixing the boat.
This sounds like a spectacular time of your life.
It was really great.
And how and why did that chapter come to an end?
Wow. And then we sailed for 2 years in Asia.
Okay.
And
Better
we were
and
like
better.
everywhere, like Philippines, Indonesia, all over Borneo. We went to Banda. And Banda, because the owner of the boat was like a scuba diver.
And are you a scuba diver as well?
Not crazy, but I can't scuba dive. And then and we on the boat we chartered the boat for scuba divers. They wanted to
Okay.
get people that wanted to get certified. One guy from Holland was a crew.
Right.
He was an instructor. So people would charter the boat for a week, get certified, and go. But yeah. So, oh well. So we were sailing there, and then took my vacation. I went to Bali. I had friends living there, and then I spent a month in Bali, and then I came back to the boat, and I was like, I think I want to quit.
And
Then I
so-
quit, and I went to move
so
to Bali.
quitting the boat and quitting the relationship?
No, he quit the boat too. So we moved together to Bali.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And did you learn to speak Balinese or
a
Indonesian
little bit,
or whatever?
a little bit.
What's the language called?
Indonesian,
Oh, okay.
Balinese. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And how long did you live there?
2 years.
And what kinds of work does one find without papers?
Well, I was doing I was designing jewelry, and then we would fly to New York. That's when I started coming to New York. So we flew to New York, and we would ship like all different, crafts from Indonesia. We were making this kind of beach kit that we called was like a sarong, a headrest, a G-string, a cap, in a pouch, all with the old batiks or
Right.
the Indonesian fabrics. And then we will go to the Hamptons and I would sell my jewelry there, the Hamptons and the stores. In New York City, we will hit some stores and sell things.
And had you been to New York City much prior to this?
No, that was my first time
Okay.
in New York.
Coming with jewelry and
Yeah,
boutiques and whatnot.
yeah.
And what did you think?
Oh, I
at
loved
this
it.
point,
It
you're
was
30,
like,
36?
I was about, yeah.
Okay.
And then I loved New York. It was like great. I mean, it was like, like a playground.
Right.
All the restaurants and people and culture was just like no violence at the time. I don't know how I hear
Well,
now it's pretty bad.
Yeah, versus like Brazil, it's a little
Yeah,
bit
compared
less.
to Brazil, it's
Yeah.
paradise. And then, yeah, it was just great. And then we back to Bali, work, ship things here, fly here, go around, sell.
Sounds like a hustle, but
Yeah,
fun.
no, it was fun. And then we used to stay at the Pier 25 in Manhattan. Was a Gil's friend was like uh, Tim. He has like the ferry boat Yankee. They used to bring all the immigrants from Ellis Island, so we stay on that boat, which was kind of fun. And yeah,
So do you get out on the river much here? I mean, I'm just thinking,
not
like,
much.
how
no.
much is the water in your blood? Sounds like it was you had to.
A lot, yeah. But the river is kind of weird because the wind is not consistent, and it's kind of. I'd rather stay on the ocean.
Right.
So when I go to the Cape, I usually rent a little sailing boat and sail around the bay. Just
Nice.
so
What kind of sailing boat do you rent?
tiny, just like
Tiny,
one of those
Like a
Yeah.
sunfish or
sunfish. Yeah,
oh, nice. That's fun.
yeah,
What a treat. So you're going back and forth from Bali to New
Yeah.
York City.
And then the second year, and then the relationship was already kind of not great.
Uh-huh.
And then one year I came, we broke up before we came, but we were still friends. And then I was like, I'm not going back. And then I decided to stay.
I'm not going back. And
And then he shipped all my stuff from Bali.
oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, that was nice.
So it must have ended on some friendly note
Yeah,
if he didn't just throw it all on the
Yeah.
street.
yeah.
So now you're in New York City. Again, I'm guessing without papers, or did
Right,
you?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was then I was like, and then I got a job in a jewelry store in Chelsea because I knew the owners. They used to buy my jewelry,
What,
So when
what was it called?
DVVS,
I
19th Street.
bought 2 engagement rings there,
There, you're kidding.
but that's a whole nother story.
You too? Oh, two.
Yeah.
Oh, two different engagements.
Yeah. Well, the first
Oh.
one got lost.
Oh,
So there was a
What, the
replacement
ring?
one. Yeah, the first ring was lost.
oh.
But yeah, and it was gorgeous. The most beautiful ring with all these stones and all this sort of like filigree stuff. It was.
What year was that? Maybe I was working there then.
I wouldn't be surprised. What year was this? It must have been
88,
90,
89?
96.
Oh, I was already up here. No,
97.
96? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
That was before. I was there in 97. I think it was 97, 98.
Maybe you were there when I bought the second one, which would have been like 2004 or something.
I was already up here.
Yeah.
I moved
And-
up here in 99.
And well, how in the world did that happen? So you're living in Chelsea. You're
Well, I was living, and then, yeah. So then I was there, and then I met this guy that was into real estate, a Brazilian guy. And then we started, because it was mutual friends, we went to a weekend to New Hope. And then he came along with these friends, and then we started dating. He was doing real estate, and yeah, he was into the real estate, and I was working at the jewelry store, and he was about to get. I was living on the boat again at the ferry boat. I was renting a cabin there, and he was looking for a place to live because his roommate was getting married. So we ended up like renting an apartment together on 17th Street, which was like right like a few blocks from the jewelry store.
right.
So it was great. I work at the jewelry store. I would walk to the jewelry store to work every
I
day.
would hope so.
And then
2 blocks.
he was like, all these Brazilians were like buying in New York. So my boyfriend was like, why don't you get your license and we can, team up? And I was like, okay. So I took my real estate license.
And at this point, I mean, what's your immigration status? What did
At
you need
this-
for the license?
Oh,
Your passport
you need
or a
lot of
driver's
things.
license?
No, at this point, yeah, I was getting my green card papers. I was working with the immigration
Okay,
already
good.
to get my papers.
All right, good. Because I'm just
'Cause I already
stalling
had
until
my-
the immigration service comes right here to the studio.
know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, take me.
Yeah.
But no, then I got like, I had a social security card, and
Right,
so I went
okay.
and I got my real estate license.
While you
And
were
then-
living in the city.
And then a lot of these Brazilians that were buying in New York knew my parents. And then, I brought them to my apartment. They loved what I did. And they were like, oh, I love what you did. Do you want to decorate my apartment? And I was like, sure.
I'll sell you the
And
apartment. I'll decorate it.
Yeah. So was
Sounds like
it
a
was
pretty
really
high
good.
time
Yeah.
down there in Chelsea.
So I made a lot of money, and then we bought a house in Woodstock.
Okay.
And then I commuted for a year, and then I got fed up with the commuting, and then I decided to stay here.
And
then,
was that a difficult decision?
No, it was difficult because of the money. It was then it was like on the year 2000,
Mm-hmm.
so it was like hard to make as much money I was making in the city.
Right.
But then I was like, my mom used to have like a landscaping business in Brazil, so I was like, oh, I could do that. So there was some landscaping companies hiring, and so I got a job just to learn about plants and winterizing and all that, so mulching, because we don't have any of that in Brazil.
Right.
So then I worked with them for 2 years. Then I opened my own landscaping gig, and then I was doing that because I didn't have a lot of real estate clients or hair clients, and then I had to go to school
So
for a license for my hair.
okay. And so what year did you go to get your license or the cosmetology?
Cosmetology was 2006.
And you're in Woodstock.
Yeah.
And had you ever had you cut much hair prior to that, apart from sort of friends?
Well, friends, yeah, mostly friends, and on the boat, I used to cut everybody's butt hair.
I see.
Yeah, all the crew and
What was the
my
name
boyfriend.
What was the name of the boat?
The boat,
The last boat.
Aile Blanche.
Aile Blanche.
Aile Blanche,
Okay.
which is means white wing in French.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
And if you Google the boat, I have a picture of me on sailing,
Really?
on steering. Yeah.
Well, then spell it Aile Blanche.
Aile Blanche. AILE. Aile Blanche.
AILE.
Blanche.
Okay.
BLANCHE. Blanche.
All right, good. We're gonna check that out. So
Yeah.
now it's 2006. You're cutting hair in Woodstock
Yeah.
and working for somebody else, or working for yourself.
Oh, I had my real estate license. I
Right.
was working with somebody else for a salon
Okay.
that I prefer not to say the name. Which are
And,
crazy.
and how did you come to be in Rhinebeck?
Well, then when these people that had a salon in Woodstock, they were friends until they were not. So then I had to look for another job in another salon. And then I was on the paper, and then I saw that Iconic was hiring.
Right.
So I went there, and I got the job. So I started coming to Rhinebeck.
And how do you get a job like that? Do you have to cut somebody's hair on spec to sort of?
Well, usually they would ask you to, but
Right.
the owner didn't ask anything, just
But Peter,
Peter, yeah.
is he still around?
I think so,
I
yeah.
haven't seen him in a
Yeah.
long time.
I think he's still around.
I used to go there because it was the place that didn't require any. As I said, this is where we met. You didn't need an appointment. I'd
Right.
just go in and
Go-
say,
just
hey,
walk in,
and they'd be
yeah.
like, yeah, sit there. Somebody will be with
Yeah,
you
yeah,
in
yeah.
20 minutes or
Yeah.
whatever.
But then I got the job, and I got a lot of clients, like, you and
Yeah.
John, and most of my clients came from there.
Yeah. Now, we chat a lot
Yeah.
when I'm sitting in your seat. Is that what it's like for with you and most of your clients? Like people come in and you're telling them stories, they're asking about you or complaining about their
Yeah, it's like the same thing. Sometimes, talk. Sometimes you do like therapy.
Yeah.
Like people complain about things, and you're like, oh no, come on.
And so do you have, when you look back over the years of doing this, do you have little therapy success stories? You're like, oh, I saved that marriage.
I don't know. I never thought about that,
Yeah.
but I'll think about it.
Yeah.
I'll let you know next time I see you for a haircut.
Right. Good. Yeah. I'm getting another haircut soon. I have not had a haircut, I think, ever where so many people are like, oh my God, that's the best haircut ever.
Good.
This one you just gave me.
Awesome.
Yeah. So take a good look at it. So
Yeah,
you can
I'm gonna take a picture
so you can
before I leave.
repeat this. Yeah. Not now, of course, but historically, have you had people who would just talk so much shit and so much smack that you're like, I can't see them again?
Yes. Absolutely. I
Okay.
fired a couple of people.
And how does that go down? I can't even imagine how
Well,
upset
some
I'd be.
people are just like, drain your energy so much that you can't deal with it.
Right.
It's just like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. So you just like listen, or you just say like, I'm booked. I don't have time when they call for appointment. So
Well, that's the
sometimes
equivalent of
some-
ghosting them.
sometimes they get the memo.
Sometimes they connect the dots.
Yeah.
And other times, I mean, have you had people who didn't connect the dots?
Oh, yeah.
And you have to say,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. You have to look for somebody else. Yeah. I can't
And-
do this anymore.
And then they say why, and you,
I just say I can't,
right.
sorry. And
Right.
they're like, but you can't do that. I'm like, oh yes, I can.
That's one of the best parts of my job,
Yeah.
is that I can do that.
Yeah.
So when you move from Iconic to Jen Martin to one-on-one,
Yeah.
you have a certain group of clients who follow you to different places?
Yeah. I mean, of course, you have to, contact them. Or when they contact you, say like, oh, I'm not there anymore. Now I'm at
Right.
this other place.
It
And then they
seems,
choose to follow you or not.
it seems like an inherent problem in that business.
Yeah.
Is you open a business, you have a nice space, and the one-on-one space is amazing.
It's a
And-
nice space.
Yeah, and somebody pays the rent. It's somebody's space. It's not your
It's not
studio,
my
right?
space. Yeah.
And then they bring you in, and you bring in a bunch of business. They get, I'm guessing, a cut of that.
But, yeah.
And then you're like, you're gonna go somewhere else. I mean,
It happens sometimes.
it seems like it happens all the time.
Yeah, I don't know
The
what it
tough-
is. It's like sometimes things like all these like owners, hair salon owners, after a while they get a little nuts. It's like I don't know if it's like part of being a salon owner, but
Right.
it's kind of wild.
Right.
It's just like
All right. Here, I posted on Facebook. We got one more minute.
all right.
That you were coming in, and people sent in some questions.
Uh-oh.
Does Frey ever wake up in the morning and wonder if his fingers are going to fully cooperate in a delicate way to cut hair?
Oh yeah, my fingers work well still.
And do you do exercises?
No.
And when you went to school for this, did they tell you like, oh, you can
Cosmetology?
stretch like this and
No.
do that?
No.
All right, one more question, and then we're done. I can't believe it. Does Frey wake up in the morning and wonder just how much personal life shit? Oh, I think we covered this. People are going to spew out because it's basically a therapy session.
Yeah, without paying for it.
That's right. Well, I
Yeah.
know I can trust you to not tell my secrets to
Yeah, of
anybody.
course.
Yeah, which is great. Well, we are at the end of the hour. It's
All right.
zoomed by, and thank you so much for coming in and talking.
Thank you for having me.
And
That was
everybody,
fun.
thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Have a great Friday and a fabulous weekend. And thanks to Jen Hammoud right here, working the board, recording this at Radio Free Rhinecliff in the back of the fabulous Epicurean Corner store in Rhinecliff, New York.
All right. Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend. Thanks. Thanks, Frey.
Thank you.